Okay, so we're up to Perek Shishi, vigilance in thought. Perek Shishi. Avahazihirus b'machshavo shmirasa roy lecha shaloi tis'alem livkoid machshavtecha v'ayonecha v'sarfei libcha roy v'hefset v'atikun b'maisim loikiim machmasam k'fi tikun v'efsedam. Okay, in English. Avahazihirus b'machshavo shmirasa. As for vigilance and thought and in guarding it, the hearers being careful of the machshava. You should not neglect to pay attention to your thoughts and your ideas and your impulses in your mind. For most of the ruin or achievement in our deeds is only because of them, say them in proportion to the excellence of ruin our thoughts. Now, Lamaisa, we've been doing that really, this whole last Perek Chamishi, when covered or anything, whatever we were doing, it's you're doing the mitzvah, but if in your mind you're doing for your covered, so that affects the value of your mitzvah, right? So you have to understand what he's going to be machadich here that we haven't been talking until now. I mean, the Maisa, what is he saying here? He's saying that our Maisim, how good our Maisim, how perfect they're, I guess. That Hefsed v'hatikun b'Maisim is based on what I'm thinking. So over here he says, or Miller says on page 287, gaining Torah ideals. When you gain Torah ideals and attitudes, you have to guard them in your mind because they could easily dissipate under the influence of the surrounding culture. For instance, you have to believe that this world is only a vestibule before the world to come. No matter how big it is, how vast it seems to be, it's nothing but an entranceway. But almost nobody thinks that in their daily life. The outer world, surely not, but also not the front world. You have to consider whether you're thinking about the next world. Are you aware of it? Do you live with that reality? He's saying. Right? Do you live with that reality that everything over here is just the entranceway to Olam Haba? And if you live with that reality, obviously all your actions and all your meisim are going to have a different spin to it than if you're living this world as that this world is the reality for itself, and all the actions you do have a different. Another important idea is the world is nothing but the word of Hashem. The entire world came into being only by His command. It looks so solid and so permanent, but it's nothing but the will of the Creator who imagined it all into existence. So the creation of the world is the foundation of all foundations. Nothing really real here. Everything is with saying Hashem. Hashem's side's not, and the world disappears, dissipates. Right? You have to be aware of that idea at all times. You also have to be aware that we are under continuous observation by Hashem, and this is happening every minute of our lives. Shivisi Hashem L'Neti Summit. To live with that reality. And all these are ideas, I'm assuming that's what he means here, that are going to affect my actions. Well, in effect, every word that you say is being taped. Yeah, Yaakov, you don't have to put on the recording. Every word that you say is being taped and it'll be played back forever and ever. Furthermore, you need to be continuously aware that every one of your acts is being analyzed to see if it's done for the service Hashem or merely to fulfill mindless habits. And he gives a bunch of examples. People daven and put on tefillin. Are they thinking about what the tefillin mean? What are the tefillin for? I once read that Rav Volba, you say the yeshiva guys put on tefillin as if they're tying on a potato. They just put it on, no thoughts. I had a guy in the yeshiva the other day, he was fetching to me that davening is too slow. I said, well, how long should davening take? So he said to me, he was telling me, I don't remember Psuka Zimmer. I remember that he said the Birchas Kriyashma should take 4 minutes. So I said, okay, take out a sitter, take out a watch. Let's see. I said, let's see you do it in 4 minutes. Right? And he tried, and I said, but listen to what you're doing. It's a clown show. That's not called davening. I said, a 4-minute davening is not davening. It's a jumble of words. You're barely saying the words if you're saying them at all. It's impossible. You can't. So, and it's only because he never.
It's a jumble of sounds.
The jumble of sounds. Not even words. And the truth is that if you look, it's I was telling him it's impossible. I said you can't say these words, but if you look, a lot of people, unfortunately, they don't even lip the words. They don't even form the words. They just look at the sitter, and they're sort of in their mind they're thinking the words. And I don't think you're Yaitza Behira. The only way you could say it, you can't say it so quickly. You can't do it in 4 minutes. It's impossible. I'm sorry. In any case, but again, it's how you're davening. What are your thoughts are? What are tefillin for? What about mezuzahs? What are mezuzahs for? There are thousands of such things that we keep, which we have to keep in our mind. And if our mind is empty of all these ideas, we're living an empty life. So you can have the mezuzah on your door, but you never even notice it, So everything about living a Jewish life depends on ideas in your head. Although you have a beautiful and expensive tzitzis hanging on you, the most important achievement about tzitzis, think about what they're saying. You never think about that. Most of the tzitzis have gone lost. Just seeing the tzitzis should trigger thoughts in your mind of all the mitzvahs Hashem gave you. That's what it says, right? That's what we say. This is not only the tzitzis you're wearing, it also includes the tzitzis your neighbor is wearing, as well as the tzitzis of the people on the street. You see tzitzis, it should make you think of the mitzvahs. Try to get into the habit of thinking what tzitzis are supposed to tell us, that Hashem gave us mitzvahs. Try to remember at least one mitzvah each time you see the tzitzis. Perhaps one time you think of shatnez, one time you think of shmiras haloshen, another time you think of loving all from Jews. Are you doing that? There are so many mitzvahs we have to keep. The tzitzis are constantly reminding us of them. But if this is not in your mind, most of the mitzvah of tzitzis is lost. It's not completely thrown out. You could always count on some reward, but most of the achievement is lost. When you sit in the sukkah, thinking about that's where we have sukkah, so the generations will know what happened when he took us out of Mitzrayim. Are you thinking of that? Unfortunately, most people are not doing so. So most of the mitzvah sukkah is thrown out. There are people who will not agree with this statement. Some will even ridicule it. But after all, the Chovos haLevavos is our teacher, not regular people in the yeshiva, in the Beis Medrash, or in the streets. What the Chovos haLevavos says is what counts, and he tells us that if you sit in the sukkah and don't think about it, but don't think about its purpose, you should know that most of the mitzvah is lost. Let's say a person is a lamdan, his only purpose to be proud of that. We're not interested in thinking about how our learning applies to us, but it's very important to do so. When you learn about a bar b'shus harabim, it should make you aware that you cannot stick your foot out into an aisle where people are passing by. The foot is a bar b'shus harabim, and people can fall over it. Unfortunately, the majority of your efforts are thrown out. It's an interesting story that a chavrusa of mine told me about Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, that he was once in Camp Aguda, and before Mincha, the Gabbai announced that anyone who had lent an umbrella to Rav Yaakov should come and get it. And my chavrusa's father went over to the Gabbai after davening and said, "Why was it so important to announce that before davening? You know, it could have been an announcement after. You make announcements after davening." He said he asked Rav Yaakov the same question. Why does it have to be now before davening? And Rav Yaakov said, "I don't understand. I'm a shoel. I'm a shamer here. I borrowed it. How can I put it down and daven? That's called a pshia and shmira. I'm not watching it because I'm davening."
Wow.
Right?
Well, yeah, if he puts it down while he's to daven, then he's lacking in his shmira. He has
What did he put down?
the umbrella that someone lent him.
Yeah, he borrowed an umbrella. He has piyuve shmira, and now he's going to daven.
Now he's going to daven. How can he daven while he's watching
How
somebody?
could he daven? So he had to return it to the owner before he davened. But that's cool. He learned the Gemara, and it had meaning to him. And it could,
What?
and when I heard that story, I said, so many times we borrow a safe from someone and we put it down in base medrash. Is there any greater pshia than to put a safer down in a base medrash? What are the chances you're going to find it where you left it? I mean, you're a shamer, you borrowed it, you got to watch it. You can't just walk away from it. So that's what he's saying here also, that you put my Rebbe in 7th grade, if you would leave your briefcase in the aisle, I still remember saying, did you ever see someone with his bone sticking out of his foot because he tripped on someone's briefcase? Like it's a barbershop around him, It's a little graphic for 7th graders. But
Saying you're supposed to learn the Gemara, learn about Barber Shishram, and then make it. That's it. So,
you're supposed to internal. You're learning it so that it should have application. It should mean something. And he's saying that everything, all the mitzvahs, everything has to have a meaning, and that's what he's saying. The Chovos haLevavos is saying over here was the hearers from Chovos shmirasa. Don't neglect to pay attention to your thoughts. Most of the hefsed, the ruin, the loss, or the tikkun of your actions are based on your thoughts. What are you thinking? Are you thinking this thing? He's saying, are you thinking? We call Mishma, 1 minute. K'moi sha'oma akasav, as the pasuk says, we call Mishmar nitzar libcha ki mimeno tetzas chayim. Pasuk in Mishlei. More than all you guard your mind. It's the source of life. When it comes to doing a mitzvah, there's much to guard. You have to make sure the tefillin are written by a qualified scribe, right manner, placed in the right kind of leather boxes. Everything must be done according to the halacha. But Mishlei is saying to guard your mind more than anything when you put on the tefillin. We call Mishma. More than anything that you're guarding, that you're watching, Nitzor Libecha. Because your mind is so delicate, because ideas are contagious, you must guard your mind with diligence. Stray thoughts can sneak into your mind. Even if you're not that kind of person, he talks about reading newspapers and going to the movies and TVs. Even if you're not that kind of person, you cannot isolate yourself from the outside world. You must constantly examine your thoughts. You have to ask yourself, am I thinking in line with the Torah? Or am I thinking like one of the people in the street? Even though your meisim are those of a firm Jew, the question remains, are my thoughts like the thoughts of a Torah Jew? And I mean, the examples he gave, well, am I living that this world is temporary? Am I living, that the world is nothing without the Ritzayin Hashem? Va'amra Torah, and the Torah says, Ki yetzer leiv ha'adam ra min ha'urot. For the inclination of man's heart is evil from his youth. People are instinctively drawn to bad choices in life. There's a temptation, a yearning to do bad just because it's bad. A woman once told me that her husband told her that women in the streets are prettier than she is. A foolish thing to say, that's for sure. When his wife walks in the street, she's attractive to other men too because it's forbidden. It says in Mishlei, Mayim genuvim yimtoku. Stolen water is sweet. Now, water is not sweet by itself. But if it's stolen, it becomes sweet. And the nature of human beings is to choose whatever's illegal. That's why many men don't want to marry. Once they marry, it's legal to have a wife and the whole attraction is lost. So you see people being receptive to persuasive suggestions of the Yetzer Hara, often in spite of the sin involved, and sometimes even because their sin is involved. That's the nature of human beings. And that's why as a holy nation, we have to be careful all our lives. Even when a person is able to resist the physical action performing a sin, he finds it tempting to think about a sin without realizing that his thought may be as much of a sin as the corresponding deed. Okay. Va'omar, ki yadati es Yitzray, pasuk in Devarim. I know the person's Yetzer. Va'omar, and it says, ki kol levav them, for Hashem searches every heart. V'chol Yetzer machshavos mevin, and discerns every inclination of thought. This is referring to subconscious thoughts that even if you tried, you wouldn't know what you're thinking about, but Hashem knows actually what sins are behind your thoughts. He judges each person not only for their actions, but for the inclinations that are driving his behavior. Hashem knows which force is behind this act. I guess even though it's subconscious, we're held responsible. That means that we could know. We tried. We worked on it. And it says, it's something that's very close to you. It's in your mouth and in your heart, so you can keep it. A major part of Torah involves speaking. In your mouth and your heart, it is referring to Torah thoughts carried out in your mind, also described with the word heart. The thoughts of your mind or heart need to be verbalized by pronouncing them with your mouth. The major part of Torah involves speaking, tefillah, learning Torah, bein anul chaverei. It also includes bilavavcha, what's in your thoughts. You can control your thoughts. It's not hard to put thoughts into your mind, even though you don't think them naturally. Just to fulfill your perfection of character, you can add these thoughts. Let's say while eating, a person chooses to think that he's eating man min hashamayim. Man fell miraculously min hashamayim, and food comes miraculously min haaretz. It's no less of a miracle than the man. We'd said already that, when Klal Yisrael came into Eretz Yisrael, they looked at what's going on. They said, that's crazy. How does food grow out of the ground? It comes from heaven. Right? For 40 years, the normal thing was that food came down from heaven. And it's only they come here, and it's the craziest miracle. Things are growing out of the ground, out of the dirt. You spill some water on it, it gets muddy, like Miller says, and somehow these plants are growing. So if a person has thoughts like that, he's living with machshavos, with contemplation, and Hashem looks at all of them, and then your eating is different, right? You understand, of course. So Tavio Hashem, you understand the nisim that Hashem created, the teva, what looks like teva, the nisim that Hashem created, that we should have the food and that the food grows out of nothing, out of a little seed, apple tree, banana trees, whatever fruits you like. And here he says, an important technique of chinuch is to begin by speaking the words that express ideals, even though the person's not actually sincere. By speaking, he's saying, it it affects your mind. Through the practice of speaking an idea as he performs the corresponding actions, the person hopes in the course of time to be thinking the great conceptual ideals as he performs everything. Even if you don't mamish feel these ideas about like how the bread grows and how the fruits grow, but if you verbalize it and you say it and you speak it and it becomes real. When you're sitting down to eat, the act can have the status of a mitzvah if you're eating the Shem Shemaim. So if you say, I'm eating the Shem Shemaim, I should be helpful. I should be able to do mitzvahs, even if you don't mamish feel it. By the fact that you're saying it, it affects it. That thought sanctifies your act, even if you're also motivated by the pleasure of eating the food that you like. But still, if you have that in mind, so it makes a difference in your eating. But in order for the sanctifying thought to clearly penetrate your mind, it helps to verbalize it with the power of speech. So you could think it. You could think I'm eating L'Shem Shamayim. But if you say it, and again, even though you're sitting down to a good steak, mamish, all your juices are like, but still, if you say, I'm eating so I could be helpful, obviously it's a little hard to say that if you're eating something that's not healthy, it's a little harder to say I'm eating a L'Shem Shamayim. Then you have to use already a shear, you have to figure out, because I need to relax. Even though maybe it's not the best thing, it's sweet and it's bad for me, but it gives me a certain Chovos hadas, and then whatever it is, but person should have these thoughts. He's saying, and if you verbalize them, they're even more powerful. Similarly to mitzvah, to love a fellow Jew. This is something you do with your mind. But in order to make it happen in real life, it helps to follow the guidance of Shammai, who teaches, receive everyone with a cheerful face, smile. You could do this by smiling and saying, I'm glad to see you. Even though you don't feel up to it yet, start by saying the words. And after a while, the thought will become part of you. That's a big insight he's saying, that by verbalizing, by saying things, it makes a big hashpah on my action. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow, B'ezras Hashem.